So this is going to be shared by everyone. So if you want, you can paste some joke on it, but like it will be used for exchanging the content. So that's, yeah, exactly. Anyone typing stuff, we can all see it. So we'll be pasting any code snippet that we need in here. All right. So quickly, again, through the step that we are going to go today. First, we're gonna demonstrate with Visual Studio Code. You can use any IDE that supports .NET Core, but you can use for .NET Core writing C# code actually. Then we are going to push it to GitHub. We are going to use AppLayer to build that application. We are going to add some unit tests. This is going to be with XUnit.
Why not NUnit?
On .NET Core, I didn't play with it, and usually the default I use is unit. So, but that actually works. Like as long as you can run unit tests and open cover can read the outcome, you're good. Then we're gonna use CodeCove to check the coverage and get the statistics. We're gonna push the analysis to Sona Cloud. So, quick thing about both CodeCove and Sona Cloud, or SonaCube, if you know the product SonaCube. That's basically a cloud version of SonaCube. There are two ways to run those code coverage, those analyses, and push it online to dashboards to see the quality of the code, the coverage of the code. It's on pull request, or PR for short, and on a specific branch.
Or merge requests if you're using GitLab.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, we're gonna actually use the merge request to the master, and then get the build or the code analyzed on that case. Usually on pull request, you want to run analysis, you want to get the feedback on your code, but you don't necessarily want to push it to a dashboard, because like the data could be just like a work in progress, like you're playing around with some feature, you try to find out how it's going to work. You want to, you don't want to have this going to a dashboard that gets polluted with like high and low score. So there is one mode to play with the tools, and there is a version where you want to have your develop or master branch, depending on how you work on it, to actually be reflected in the dashboards. And we'll see also we can have badges to be on your maybe a README file or on the page that you host the code, so that you can see quickly at a glance the status of your code and your application. And then we're going to push it to Azure to host it. We're going to use the free environment of Azure. Like depending if you're creating an account right now, you might have $200 credit, I think, on the developer mode, but we're going to use the actual free app service from Azure, so you don't have to worry on the complexity to create the account. It's very easy, and we'll go through all of the steps. Is everything okay so far? Yeah. Do we need any help in Thai, or is it clear? No? Any question from the Thai community? Okay. We have our help here, and as we go, as we do the exercise anyway, like you don't hesitate to ping us. So let's start. We can create anywhere, but you need a folder for your application. So that's the time for playing with our fingers and getting things done. You can create a folder, whatever name you want for your application. Go to that folder and type .NET new React. This is going to create a template for an application, like it would be a ready running application, and it's going to suggest you to type npm install. If you are a Yarn aficionado, don't do that yet. We're going to have to tweak a little bit the package.json so that there will be no conflict with React, because basically there is a few issues with the React and typing. This is actually a React application that uses TypeScript, and the definitions are not fully in sync, and there are duplicate dependencies that create difficulty with Yarn. I'm going to show you how to address that. So if you open the package.json in code in your IDE that has been created by this application, you will have the top part here that shows the dev dependencies. You can change some of them if you want, but you don't have to change the version. Like the one I show at the top, history, by default it's 460. You can change it to 462 because it will make it easier for the resolution later. And a few packages can be also updated. So you can you see from the screen like the versions that I'm showing? ASP.NET Webpack 3.0.0. Sorry? It's not. Should we dim the light, maybe?
Next time, put a white background with your ID.
Yes.
Yeah. Might be a bit romantic. There goes.
Oh, actually, let me just go there. Oh, can I change this one to be a white background? Window here.
Just make the font bigger.
Not this one. Foreground. Okay.
Not the text. On the left is.
Sorry.
You'll have to change the colors of the cloth. I'll just make the font bigger so big.
Yeah, yeah. Font, text. Okay. Can you see? So .NET new React. It's telling you to run npm install that we want. I'm gonna open this one, and I should probably zoom in as well. So the package.json here. It's bigger. Can you see well this? So the first one we're going to change is this history. We're going to put it at 462. Yeah. It should be if you list the directory. Oh. I'm not sure why it wouldn't be. Maybe you can try to delete the folder and try again to bring it, because it should. It's this Windows. Okay, then maybe there is an issue with the network on this one. Okay, we said we're gonna change this one. Where is the screen? Yeah, it seems like some. It should be generated by the command, like when you do .NET new React should create. What version of .NET Core SDK are you using? And are you using the SDK or just the runtime?
So should there be a package JSON in the root or in the client app folder?
No, in the root.
Should be on the root.
But this is based on the .NET version I mentioned earlier. If you have a new one, maybe you have created a new scaffolding. I'm using 2.1.202.
I use the same.
I'm using 3.
Which one?
So it's like 2, 1, 3.
That shouldn't be.
So it's going through it as well now, package JSON in the root.
Aha.
Yes,
But do you have it in the client app application?
Yeah, it's in the client app.
Then,
but it looks a bit different.
okay.
Someone just asked that is it the JS template or TypeScript template?
TypeScript. But the default React should be using TypeScript, but at least on that version. So since this workshop is using 2.1.202, if we want to follow either, we can apply, like you can apply the same change in the client app folder, or you might have to downgrade your .NET Core to version 2.1.202. How many people are facing this issue? Like, who doesn't have a package that is on in the root folder?
Lots of people.
Okay, at least half people.
Whoเป็นชื่อโฟลเดอร์ฟอนต์ไปกิน ตั้งใหม่ก็ได้
Maybe it's just because of the different version of the SDK.
Yeah, I think so, because it's a version of the SDK.
It's a minor update, so that's surprising they have such a big change.
Yeah.
And I just did it actually here with that version. So is it possible for people facing the issue to downgrade their SDK?
Or maybe we could push that one up to a Git repo.
Which one? How to push this? Actually, yeah. Okay, so let's do that. Let's move forward. I'm gonna push this to a Git repository on my page, and then you can just check it out and use it as a base. So let's go to a browser. Here we go to GitHub. So for the ones that are aligned on the versions, let's just go there. Actually, let's go through the steps, and then once we are done here for the one that have the right version, we'll push to GitHub. That's the step later on this tutorial. The other one can just follow what we do, and when it's pushed, you can just check it out from anyone here. So sorry?
When you put your Git repo up, get them to fork it.
Yeah, so anyone can fork it. So we said the ASP.NET Webpack, we want to change it to version 3.0.0 ASP.NET Webpack. We're going to change it to 3.0.0. The CSS loader, we're going to change it to 1.
Cedric,
Yeah.
can you zoom in a little bit?
Sorry?
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Zoom. Oh, is it too small?
Control plus.
Why we are doing this? I mean, what the major steps? We needed that.
So we're doing that because if you use npm, you don't need to do that. But if you use yarn, you need to do that because it's going to generate. It's going to be confused with some package that have different references. So there's a reference to React, 2 versions of React. And when you build the application, when you actually transpile it, it will generate errors, but it doesn't find the definitions. And actually, it has definitions, it's just duplicates, so it can't handle it. Now, if you use npm, you can just go ahead and do npm install. It's just a trick, and the trick is actually at the bottom of the file when you add the resolutions. Webpack, like not mandatory, but you can also upgrade it to 3.1.0. And now this is the magic that we need to do. We're going to add resolutions to tell Yarn what versions of specific package to take when it finds a duplicate. And that's how you don't modify your Yarn log, that is like an ugly thing to do.
Yes, it's a transient dependency issue.
So we're going to copy history and React, like from the @types part, right? From there. And we're going to paste it to the resolution. And one more is the React router. Here. So we're going to use the React router here. And again, if you're on npm, you don't need to do that. It's just like you might face that with other packages. It's good to know that this resolution option is available.
what the issue happened with NPM?
They resolve differently, and I guess they prepare this template of application using NPM, but never tried to use a yarn, so they just didn't find, or they're probably not aware there is a problem. Now, if you're on different SDK and it's created a new package.json, maybe that one actually works.
They fixed the bug.
Because of this block here is selected, dependency is resolution features of yarn itself.
Yeah.
It does not include it in NPM.
Yeah. Okay, so if we bring a terminal, oh, it's very big. Okay, that's fine. We should be able to do yarn install. You can ignore the few warning that will come. Okay, and we can do .NET build, and this is going to also call the transpilation. So this is done because in your CS approach file, I'm going to close this guy. In the CS approach here, you see there is some condition in the build that says, okay, if you don't find the file dist, here if the file root dist doesn't exist, build by using webpack. Now, to be fair, I don't like this breakdown of the way webpack is splitting this vendor versus custom code. There's probably some more elegant way to do, but again, this tutorial is not about building React application, not about building a .NET Core application. It's about having something to start with, to put it through a CI. Okay, so now we are here. It's time to go and push that to, this is what we just did. If you want to run it locally, you can place that in a command line, ASP.NET Core environment equal development, space .NET run, and open a browser, and it will have a very basic template application. Let's do that here. ASP.NET. Just core development and environment equal development. Right. So this put it into development mode. The term is core. Okay. Yeah, it's in a bash. So we need to use a bash script for that because PowerShell doesn't know this ASP.NET Core environment equal development. .NET run. And this application actually is using hot reload. Oh, did I do a build here? Next, restore .NET build. ASP.NET Core environment equal development. No typo here. Okay, is anyone getting also an exception like this? Cannot find webpack dev middleware. Aha. So, you know what? We're gonna use that link. gonna cheat a little bit and take a version that is actually complete. Did I miss anything here? Oh, Webpack 251. Maybe we don't need to update it yet. So let's go back to our package config and go with this one. Let me zoom again just to show which version you need to use. So Webpack, you might want to keep it as 2.5.1 actually. And CSS loader, you're gonna keep it at 0.284, not at 1.0.0. And here we should be, do you have these versions for Webpack, Webpack React, and the loader middleware 2.18.2. And if you do that, you're gonna have to delete your node module folder. We need to delete the yarn lock and the npm actually wrap. Did I save this one? I think I actually missed one thing to update here, and that's why it didn't work, but we're going to use the cheap version. So is anyone able to build and to run this command? Yeah?
I do this dotnet run thing, and then it's got something running on 5,000, and that redirects me to 5,001 on HTTPS and 1,000 certificate.
Okay, you might have a setup or a setting on your machine to do a redirection, because .NET Core would not do that by default.
Actually, it does on 2.1.
On 2.1?
On 2.1, it's default HTTPS upgrade. So you have to install the certificate to make your browser trust that certificate.
Okay, but it's not to create a certificate for my local machine.
I'm not so sure.
Okay,
That's
what I would probably recommend to downgrade to the same .NET Core SDK. Otherwise, that's going to be like we might be facing repeatedly similar issues, and we wouldn't be able to complete the whole scope of the workshop.
How do I downgrade?
You might need to uninstall, download the right version from Microsoft. So we installed here, we did the restore. We might want to delete the root dist folder and rebuild. This time. Okay. So now here we should have the default application, which for that version should not redirect to HTTPS. Is anyone at this stage? How many people are getting to that stage? Okay, so let's wait a little bit for downgrading maybe your .NET Core version, or we want to give a chance. Sorry?
Which version do you want?
2.1.202. Yeah.
For that version is 2.1.3 and then preview one. For that version.
It's different version. Let's try to find. Well, otherwise we might want to transform this this workshop into here. You should be able to find from GitHub like the hosts, Windows, Linux, they have a GitHub directory where you can actually download it.
I've found it. It's 2.1.2.2. 0. So 2.0.9 is version 2.1.202.
Okay, can you paste the download link on here? This is codeshare.io/tech. So anyone would be able to download it.
Is that case sensitive? So
TechAtAgoda, yes, it might be.
okay. Yeah.
Is it the full link?
Yeah, well, that'll give you the download page. The top one there is 202.
So let's give it a try. Okay, so yeah, here we should get the link. You can just install it from here. Sorry? To uninstall it using the Windows. You should have somewhere to install applications. Yeah, okay. I'll try to install the other one and maybe it will replace it. We'll have to replace it.
Could use a Docker container.
Well, that's an extension, but I don't think we would have time.
Well, I think it might save them actually.
Well, at this point, yeah. So, are you guys able to downgrade the version? Like whoever was started before? Give a couple of minutes. Oh. Try to install it. So it should be there.
Yeah.
Are we mostly good to continue, or do we need a couple of minutes more? Anyone wants to wait? No? Okay. So let's continue. We're gonna push our code to GitHub. If you don't have an account, then now it's time to create it on GitHub.com. And if you already have, then just use it. We will need a SSH key. If you don't already have, you can use Git bash on Windows to do a Git key gen and generate it. So within your folder, okay, hopefully it's not too small here. Within the folder where you created this application, we can type this boost commands, or if you have a UI tool, you can just do the same if you're familiar with Git. This is just for the basic commands that can be used. It's my terminal there. Control C to close the application. Does anyone know how to use the anonymous email on GitHub? Anyone knows? No? Like, the good thing of GitHub is like it's open source, it's public, everybody can share it, but sometimes you don't want to put your private email and maybe you have an old GitHub account, and then while you start to be popular, you don't want to have your private email available. We're gonna see how to do that, like in a moment as we create the account. Basically, what it does is GitHub provide a proxy to your email, and you can use it in your Git configuration. And when you push your code, it's using that proxy email. You receive notification to your mailbox, but at least it's not visible in the Git logs and or on the Git repository. So let's do that. Git init. Okay, we initialize the repository. For now, we're gonna add everything, knowing that a few stuff we don't want to push on GitHub, like all the dynamic assets, like the node modules. We don't want to push that on GitHub, so we need to create a git ignore to exclude what we don't want. I think, let's go to here. Yeah, the basic git ignore has been created already, so you should be good to for those assets generated by the .NET scaffolding. But if we add more stuff, you will need to edit it to add your personal files. Git add dot, it will just add everything. We can check, does it include everything we want? It seems, yeah, there's no extra files. The distribution files, the dynamic files are not pushed to the source, like we don't want to have the compiled versions of a code, right? So we're gonna commit, and commit message, maybe initial commit of my source. And now we need to tell where to push this code. So I'm gonna shift to GitHub. I'm not sure I already signed in on another tab. Here, yes. So I'm going to create a new repository. TechAtAgoda 2018-0804, just today's date. I'm gonna make it public. And I'm not going to initialize it with a git ignore because we already have one, right? License, it's up to you. Now you will see that actually it's telling you already what we just did. So you can copy this line that is generated from your own repository, which is the next step that we are going to apply, to say, okay, this is the destination of, okay, I didn't copy. This is the destination of my repo. Okay. Is everybody here able to create a repository, or do you need to create an account? Can we continue? Do you need a couple of seconds? Did it work for the SDK? Okay, yeah. Let's cross fingers. Okay, so we should be there with. Now we have told Git, like your local repository, you will see that there is a .git folder that has been created, and it has indexed your repository to this remote location. Now what we want to do is we are going to push this repository to the destination on GitHub. And on the command line, we're going to put -u or remote to track your branch to be linked to that current branch. That's what the git push -u means. So that when every time you push, you don't need to put master, basically. Reaching, and I'm going to create it as a master branch. So if that doesn't collapse and we're good, now in case you have trouble to initialize your application with .NET Core and it's not feasible or not simple to downgrade .NET Core, you should be able to use this URL. I'm going to paste into the other code share link. Okay, here you go. Oh, thank you for the Docker environment. So you have also some comment here. You can forward this repository to your repository, and you will be at the same stage as I am on the screen. Now, I was talking about private email, like on the open source, like we are okay to show our avatar, to show our nickname, but for some case you don't want to have your email publicly visible, for whichever reason. We're gonna turn over to GitHub here, and if you go to settings here, and I've already done that change, so you will see the setup already done. So obviously my personal email, which is my TechAtAgoda email here, is visible to my profile, but I have enabled the keep my email address private here, and it generates this proxy there, right? And you can even block to push to your branch if there is a commit that includes your public, your private email address. So this is like really to prevent any like error when you commit your code. It's changing, setting your email address, and when you push the code, it will block it. Now, how do we configure Git to do that, to use that email? If you do git config -- global list, you will see that I have already set my username and my user email to the right value. It might show, if you have used Git on your machine, your existing email address. You can change it by issuing almost the same command, just --global user.email space the email address you want to use, and basically that's it. You will be anonymous for everything that you push to GitHub.
Yeah, but be careful because you're going to change global configuration.
This is global, yes. So interestingly, you can do that not global, but to the local repository, and you will see in your like if you do list here, I think it will show. Yeah, you see, I have user email. It should appear. Oh no, this is a new repository. If you put it to a local config, you will have this line a second time around the bottom. And but I tried to push code when I set it to local, and it didn't work. Like Git doesn't allow me to push code even with that. But I might have some previous Git logs with my email. That could have been the case, but you can also do that only for this repository. Does everybody have their own version of a source or forked the GitHub version? Are we all in the same place? Because that's now where the fun of a CI/CD is going to really start. Like this was just a preparation to have an environment that is able to run a .NET Core application. So let's continue with the slides. So we have pushed our code. I was mentioning about you can put your real email or private email into that configuration. Let's start to build, right? Anyone here has already used AppLayer? And that's why you work at Facebook. So AppLayer is basically, it does a lot of things, and it's just primarily building source code, but it runs with almost everything that you ask it to do. There are two modes that you can use AppLayer. One is through the UI you provide, and you can select all the options you want. So it goes from like setting up environment variables, test environment, test script, test command, build, obviously, and any custom commands that you want through different types of scripts. What it does, it's spinning a machine every time that you want to run a build. It creates what we call an agent, if you're familiar with TeamCity or Jenkins, that are preset agents. In that layer, it's just created on the fly as you need it. And depending on the profile that you set, like you can choose a Linux machine or a Windows machine. As I was saying earlier, we are going to use Windows version because of OpenCover, but doesn't work on Linux. And apparently the contributor is not so much focused on making it work. It might happen, but for now, it's a project that is really old for the contributor to this repo, and they are not planning to move it. We will see that actually there is a few tweaks to use OpenCover for .NET Core, but it's still possible to do that. So let's move on to appbayer.com. The good thing is you don't need to yet create a new account and go through registration process. You can directly do using the GitHub link, a single sign-on via GitHub. So appbayer.com. We go to sign in, GitHub. You might need to do some authorization selections for GitHub if it is the first time. And I think I have a few screenshots here. So GitHub, well, that's all that we get. Okay, so let's go back here. I have already a project that we are going to create a new project. You select GitHub since it is the link of a repository you want. We're going to find the TechAtAgoda. These are not all my project, right? But they are linked to my account. This is the one I created today. So I'm going to add appbayer. Okay, so this is the simple interface. There's not so many options here, but it's very powerful. The latest build tab is going to show you basically what has been your latest completed build and the progress of it. History shows whatever has been happening before, knowing that the retention policy will delete historical build. Like it's a free environment. They don't want to host and keeping like large volume of data. Also, one note, it's a little bit slow. Like we have a very simple application, and it's already going to take like 2-3 minutes by the end of the workshop to do all the compilation, translation, code analysis, and so on. But well, it's free, right? So we can wait a couple of minutes to have a nice build environment. And again, it's a dev environment. Once you want to use this for a real business, you would move with more like the enterprise version eventually. Deployment. I'm not sure we'll have time to go through the deployment tab here. We will do deployment via the configuration. Here you can basically just trigger on-demand specific deployment on previous packages. But what we want to do is like when we merge to master, it should automatically deploy. You don't want to deploy a pull request. It doesn't really make sense. Like you might just break your application if it is not right. Events is like the past information, the past activity on your account. Like here we just created the project. And then we have the settings of a build. And this is where we're going to spend a little bit of time in appbayer about setting up how we want to build and later test our application. We have two options here. I was mentioning we can use the UI. We can also use the appbayer.yaml file that contain all the information. Who is not familiar with YAML? I don't know if I pronounced it right. So everybody has played with some YAML configuration, right? Anyway, we're going to go through that very simply. You will see that everything we do in the UI, at the end we can export it to with that link. We can use it to initialize the first template of a YAML and customize it, or just use the UI. So here we have the project name, the next build number. This will automatically be incremented at every build. One thing actually, on this general tab, anything that is here is not available in the YAML. Like you cannot tweak anything from here into your almost. We'll go back to that. Maybe the build tag might be available. But these are a few options here that are not available in the YAML. You will need to set there. The build version, you can actually set it into a YAML. Pull requests do not include increment number, that's self-explanatory. Your repo, so that's here there. The default branch, like it's already preset. You can add the branches you want to build. Usually, like for the workshop today, we're just gonna build anything. We're gonna create pull requests from a feature branch to master, so it doesn't really matter what we put there. You might ask to not build tags, especially if it takes a lot of time to build, and we have only one build agent at a time. So if you are pushing a branch, opening a pull request, and tagging eventually, that's 3 builds that's going to be created in app layer, and you would need to wait eventually for the last one, depending on which one comes first. So we're going to say, okay, I don't want to build tags. Or to just build tags, maybe because this is what you want to deploy, right?
So I have a question. If you want to pay for where, then we can get more.
There is enterprise version, yes. Like you can register. This is not just and yeah, I have no idea. I have no affiliation with any of the tools that we are going to see today, so I'm not selling anything, right? Some options, like there's some ways, like sometimes you want to fetch as a zip because you want to include it into another project, and there's something that you can tweak. The clone depth, so that's interesting. Like if you know that you want to clone just one level of your code because the last version is the only thing you need. This is particularly relevant for very large application when you have a long history. Might take like a long time to download the whole history, and you just want to build your pull request, right? So the clone depth of 1 would be enough for your case. Webhook, we're not going to play with that today because otherwise it will be too much app layer, not enough the rest of the CI. But you can trigger events from the build to send to that webhook, and it will connect to your custom. You can link it to your custom application or API. Build priority, like you want this one to be more high priority than the other project that you have. Like I have another project on this account. I want to put some priority. Maps job, I think this is only for the paid version. Time out private build, like after that, like these are very rare features. I don't think we are going to use any specifics here. Ignore app layer if we use the UI only. Skip a branch if we don't have a layer. Rolling build. Secure variables. Oh, yeah, that's one we might want to use. Now, we are going to use third-party applications, right? We are going to use Code, we are going to use SonarQube, and we will need to use keys from this system to push data there. And actually, we're going to create a hook to GitHub to post back on GitHub and say, hey, the build is complete, successfully or not successfully. We need some identification, some keys. We're going to use mostly tokens for that. You don't want to put that into your app layer or your config to be clear text, because anyone that forks your repo, then they can push and eventually do something bad on your repository. It's a public repository. Actually, it's a bit of privacy also here. You want to secure this. So if you need to push information or to use with token to those applications, you might want to enable the secure variables, and we'll see what are the secure variables in a moment. But it is not enabled by default. Again, if somebody submit a pull request from their fork repository to your repository, you could echo to the console the secure variable, and it will be displayed in plain text. And then you just need to go to app layer to see the console log, and you would get the key, and bing, you get somebody that could do something on your account. Yes?
Can I add an app layer project from the online, or do I?
There are some ways. We don't need to go here to do a thing. There are some not SDK, some tools that exist. We are not going to do that today.
My GitHub account breaks up there because there's too many.
Oh, okay. You could, yeah. Eventually, you can try to create a new one, a new GitHub account eventually for that purpose. Again, it's the developer edition is less strong. Probably there's some limitations on larger projects. Okay, Okay, save build cache. We could save it for each of the pull requests, but we'll see there is also an archive option where you can specifically save what you want to reuse for subsequent builds. You don't need to store everything. Always build pull request itself explanatory, and do not build feature branch with open pull request. We are also going to use that feature. That goes again with what I was saying earlier. Let's say this scenario. You create a feature branch. You start to do your code, you push it to GitHub. Appayer is going to pick it up immediately. It's going to build it. Now, it happens behind the scene. Usual coding practice or software environment, we would create a pull request to make the change to be reviewed by a peer, to be analyzed, whichever good software development practice happens. When you create a pull request, it's going to create also a build here. So you're going to build twice the same code. You can enable this to say, okay, if I have a pull request, next time you push to a pull request, it's not going to create both build on the branch and the pull request. It's just going to build your pull request. So let's recap what we want to set here. Enable secure variable on pull request. We are going to enable that, and the rest is not so relevant. Now, those options are to monitor a little bit how you want the output, the outcome to play. So that's not the info patching. It's basically to inject the version, like the build version, to your code. So it will just change the SLB info and the related files. We will use that, but just to simplify the way we are going to work, we mostly are going to go through the YAML file, presenting here the options, but mostly when we start pushing our stuff on the sample application, I will be using the YAML file. .NET Core patching, like they have apparently different way to do it, so they want to enable separately. Clone scripts, on build success, on build error, and on build finish. You can also trigger specific script or commands depending on what you want. The commands you would be pasting here directly the code. What I don't like to on this kind of options is that you start to have like configuration in many tabs, and you need to find out, okay, here do I have a command, here I have a script or whatever. So at the end of this workshop, we will have a simple YAML file that will be calling specific script for the test and for the completion of the build. Just to keep these things together and simple. I think that's about it. So let's go back and see what are the minimum features we want to enable here. Project name, build number, pull request, do not increment. No, we're not going to enable that. Do not build text. I think we have set them as we go. Ignore layer, skip branch, enable variables. We want this one. Do not build feature. Okay, so now I'm going to save. And we'll see that some of those features, some of those options are already available in the YAML export, but not all of them are here. If we go there, like only a few of them are actually visible, like not the whole thing. Okay, environment. So here we can define what kind of build environment we want. Just because I don't recall what we have on the YAML. Okay, so we will have the full YAML here. For .NET Core, we are going to use the Visual Studio 2017. At least it's tested with that version, which is here, right? And we are not going to use the environment variables yet, but if you wanted to have, for example, some conditions or some variables that needs to be passed to your build script, earlier we saw that we just do a .NET build without any options, but you can add those variables here. And the build matrix is a bit advanced. We will probably not go through that today. And service and all this additional, you want to use external systems to build your, or to do part of the build. Init script and install script, also like post build some options that you want to activate. I will not save that since we're going to use the Appayer file. For the build here, I'm going to set it to off after going through the options. We want to keep a default configuration here. You could select like debug release, but it's not the purpose of this. You could do a debug on your feature branch and test to have the debug code enabled or available. And when you do the release code for the master branch, you can select a different configuration, basically here. Platform, and what's the CPU types that you want. Project file, we will provide that in the Aveyor.yaml and some parallel builds. I have not played with that, but I don't think for our application it's meaningful to have like parallel builds. Repository, yeah, doesn't really matter. And then the packaging. So we're not going to enable packaging yet. When we start to go to the Azure deployment, we will enable the one that is relevant. And I was mentioning that at every stage, like from build, from environment, from test, you have those scripts. So here again, you have before build, before packaging, and after build, some options to run your own command. Knowing that the environment of your build will define which kind of command you can run. PowerShell command, MS-DOS command, or shell on a Linux machine. We're going to pick Visual Studio build, so it's going to be a Windows machine. Test, something very similar, like we're going to have what kind of test we want to run before test scripts, after test scripts. Like again, the same types of orchestration. Artifact, I mentioned earlier, we can define what artifact we want to store on Aveyor cache to reuse later. So one thing here, because our application is very small and we don't have so many assets that are built, like we could push here, for example, the node modules, right? Because it's faster to just reuse something that has been fetched. It turns out that for this project, it's faster to run yarn install in our script than downloading the zip and zipping and using. For bigger project, it might be worth testing for your situation. But on that case, we're not going to artifact the node modules. At the end, we are going to artifact the publish outcome of the application so that we can push it to Azure. Deployment, we will go through that as we move to Azure. NuGet, you can add some specific NuGet configuration if you want to push a DLL or a package to NuGet. We are not going to do that today as well. Notification, that we're going to use through the YAML, but basically you can tell it to GitHub Pull Request, and we can put the token here and select what are the feedback given from Aveyor to GitHub. One thing is Aveyor, since you're logged in with your GitHub account, like it's related, there is some level of trust between Aveyor and GitHub where you just need to enable some applications, some settings in GitHub, and Aveyor will be able to ping back on GitHub. Permission, that's when you start to have a bigger project. It's not waste time here. Badges, that's at the end when everything is done. We have some nice badge to be rendered. And at the end, we have our YAML. Now, let's move back to Visual Studio Code or your IDE, and let's start to create a configuration. Is it readable? Like again, I'm going to paste that on the TechAtAgoda thing, but I want to describe a little bit here what is reflected. So, version, it's coming from the first general tabs. The image, what build is going to be run. I see some pictures, like taking pictures of the slides. I will share the GitHub account that contains representation. So if you want it, like you can get it later. You can still take pictures just to share the information. Configuration, we're going to do a release build, any CPU. So here I'm going to say skip branch with PR, right? We went through that earlier. Skip tags, clone depth, like we just want one level. .NET CS Proj, so we want to enable patching to have the versions activated on each of the files, like only a few are actually relevant to our project. Then for this, yeah. Okay. forget what somebody was asking. For this initial stage, we're going to put the script inline in the YAML. Later, we're going to put it inside its own script. Ignore the stage one, like that's a subfolder that I have for this exercise. I'm just doing the steps that we did earlier manually that are going to be run on the app layer. So we will do a yarn install, the webpack, the to webpack, because that's the way the application is prepared. A .NET restore. So this is a before build. You want to get your initial assets there. Then you're going to let it build your CS approach. So you will need to change the path to be your root folder, most likely. Publish is .NET Core, you can ignore that one, you can leave it, it's not going to have any negative effect. And here, what I was saying earlier, we can enable notification with GitHub Pull Request. And once we enable on the GitHub side to be receiving from Avayer, then actually on code as well, it's going to go automatically there. Do you want me to paste that into the code share?
Yes. Maybe we can just put the record.
Okay, I can. Yeah, actually, I can share with you the. Let's see. There we have. This one repository is stage one, and you have the app layer, the equivalent app layer here. So if you go to this one, obviously you will need to edit for the path. That will be different, but you can pick the YAML here. And that's the same repository that contains this presentation. If you go to the top level, so okay, you get the slides that is available here. Okay. So let's go to stage one there. Let's pick this one as a row. So I'm going in the root, I create a new file at layer.yml. Okay. So here, because it's a little bit different environment, I'm going to change that. I don't need to cd anywhere actually. I'm already at the right place. .NET restore. Project is going to be TechAtAgoda for my case. And I think that's about it. If you're using, you can push your change to you can push your change directly on GitHub, and you should be able to see the builds kicking. Oh, I didn't create a feature branch. That would be better practice to do that. Feature up there, let's see. Okay, just gonna cheat here. Let's actually remove this one. Pushing it, and let's go and see in TechAtAgoda latest build. Aha, here we go. So this one I have created. Okay, these are just warning. I showing red, but these are the same warning as the yarn installed. Don't worry on this part. If it is lower, it might be that would be a problem. But at the yarn install part, it's expected. Here, I push the branch, so it's making the build because I don't have a PR open yet. Now I'm going to open a PR to merge to master, and this is going to also generate a build here. But then any push to my branch will only build this PR, not both the branch and the pull request. So here we can see it has run the yarn part that is in the CS project setup. Because I don't have a root folder dist with my assets, it ran the CS project build and generate the outcome. Now we have the package and we have a build success. Let's take a few minutes just to make sure everybody is aligned. Anyone is able to push their code and get some builds triggered, and did you get any error that happened? Yeah. Okay. It should work with NPM, yes. Initially, the project is built by NPM, like some, like I already did the outro and yeah, but using NPM should be working. Okay. So these are just warning, that's fine, right? Because some dependency are, so as long as it's okay, so I actually did test NPM on this one. Now, the NPM, I guess it's not the one, and you probably want to change it. So, if you are actually using NPM apparently on Advair, it doesn't seem to be working very well. Now, you don't need to have yarn on your machine to have the YAML file use yarn, right? You can just let it build using yarn and it should work. The success, yes, even though some step might fail, if it is able to compile at the end, like this step was successful, you might still get a build success, but some of the assets not available. And how we can verify that this is working, that the build is actually successful, is when we have unit tests. And we probably is going to skip the TypeScript test so that we can move forward to the deployment. It will show that actually it cannot run the test and then the build will fail. But right now, even if you have some errors, as long as the last step works, it might show as a build success. So maybe you can try to change it to yarn and see if it works.
I have a question about
Yeah.
for builds that you have to should I follow TechAtAgoda instead of page source?
Yeah, so you can remove, because you push your code to the root, so you can remove that line completely. Yeah, the whole line, yeah.
So basically it is in the root folder.
Yes, you have, you are in the right place. Like for the file I shared, you will see it goes to a CD, stage 1 stores, and in the next few steps, you will see stage 2, stage 3, as we move forward towards the changes on the YAML file. You can skip all those change of directory, because for our case, we push to a source. Let me show version again. Should look, this is the part that should be identical for you. Let's have a quick check on, we don't have a pull requests yet, so we're not going to see the change happening, but let's create that PR now. So I'm going to create a pull request. Okay, able to merge, should be no conflicts since it's the first build. Here we go. Create pull request, and we should get this page to refresh. No, need to go to latest build. Now you see pull request number 1, and we get a new version that is created. 1.0.2, and it's going to run at this stage, the same thing. But now we have a pull request. It's not going to build the main branch as I was mentioning earlier. You will see in the history we have branch build, and then pull request build. Let's wait for this to go. Okay. Anyone is not able to get at least the build triggered and running on the app layer? Or is everybody able to get to that stage? Yeah. And is the build successful with no other warning than the yarn install? Okay. So now we're going to do some.
I have this warning from critical. The view say warning.
Okay, so that's what I was mentioning earlier. The NPM, this is fine for the NPM, but when I'm not worried, this one is more.
I think I messed up the time.
Okay, it looks like, yes, it's in the install part. As I was saying, if the previous steps before build are eventually failing, but the last build step is able to compile the .NET core application, the end result will be build OK. This is because it's all automated and the system is not yet able to know that the build is not OK. It doesn't capture those previous warnings. Now, what we're going to do is by adding tests, we're going to make sure that the code we have compiled are successful. And then if the tests fail to run, it will fail the build. Now, again, I created those slides based on the OpenCI Git repository, so you can ignore the source stage 1 kind of folder. You will use directly your root. Now, we're going to move all your folder. You're going to have to move it to a source folder, to a SRC folder, or whichever name you want, so that we can create a test folder separately, or you create a test folder within your source, but it's kind of messy, so we should rename or move things around. Let me do that in here. So now this is the folder that you should have, right? We're going to copy almost everything into a source folder because we don't want to move git ignore, we don't want to move the app layer file. The rest can be moved, and be careful you are not going to select the .git folder in case it is available. So I'm going to create that source. Then select everything, and where is my git ignore? Okay, move it to source. Now we're going to need to change the build step, right, to go to that source folder so that it can work. So now you understand why I used to have that folder. You need an extra line between each of the steps if you are on Windows. Hit save, and then we're going to create XUnit test. Like, not everybody seems to be happy with the types of a library. It would work the same if you're familiar with NUnit and you want to do a test using NUnit. That works as well. So let's go to our console and create this test. I am in the root folder. I create test. I go to test. .NET new XUnit. Actually, on the presentation in the back, I'm missing one command to create a solution. So we're going to do that in the command here. So So I go back to the previous higher folder. Before we do adding the reference, we're going to create a .NET new solution file. Right, it created TechAtAgoda.sln, and then we can do that add reference, and we're going to do it twice, one for the test, one for the project. Actually, the reference is in the test project. So .NET add reference, add source, TechAtAgoda.cs project, and test.cs project. So now we have a solution that is referring to a project. We're going to go to this test project, and we are going to give a reference of our source to the test project so that we can build test case on that. .NET add reference source TechAtAgoda.cs project. Okay. So now our test project is able to be aware of our code. We can do a restore just to initialize where we in test, okay, to make sure that it's happy with what it got. Okay, it's aware of the test project, it's aware of the TechAtAgoda project. Let's move on to Visual Studio. Now we have the default unit test that does not much. We're going to create a unit test. So here we can take a little bit of time. Now to make it easy to test, we're going to modify the source to add a dummy service, basically. So in your original source, like where we created the .NET Core application, you're gonna go to here and create a new folder, service or services. And we create a new class, name service. It's not a great name, but let's do it. And you can pick the code if you don't want to type the whole stuff. You can go to the OpenCI project I listed earlier. Go to the stage one. Is it stage one? No. Yeah, that is stage two. So get there. You have a test. Sorry, in the source first to add the service. Here you get two files: the iname service and the name service that implements the content. Let's go flow. Here, so basically what I'm saying is I just want to get a name with a title, and if title is not null, just return the hard-coded John Smith, otherwise Mr. John Smith or whatever name comes with it. We want the interface as well. So you repeat the operation with an iname service. And again, the goal is not to learn how to do unit tests. It's not about playing with .NET Core. It's to have some matter to use for the execution in a CI environment and to get code coverage running. So I create an iname service. Okay. I put my interface there. So now we're going to have to use it. You can actually put it anywhere you want in the code. The way that I did that is in the controller, home controller there. I add a view data information that we're going to use in the index file. So before I return the view, we do view data of name equal, let's be lazy, name service get name, and let's just pass nothing. To be able to use it or to view it, like you don't have to do it, but if you want to be able to visualize it, you could add in the page here to set some value. An example in here, you can add the name in the, for example, in the title, add toData name. You can put it anywhere you want. It's just to have to play with the values. Put that into a layout. At view data. It's case sensitive. Okay. Now let's have a check before we push it to add layer. I want to make sure that it's actually working. That hopefully I didn't miss any step. Otherwise, well, we can see what it gives. I am in the test project, so I'm going to do .NET build. One error, okay. Name service. Oh, okay, yeah. In our controller, we're in a different namespace, right? So my name service is in just open source CI. Oh, actually it should. And service source. Oh, okay. I pasted from the other application, so that's why. You want to reuse your namespace. I'm going to change it to service. And the same for this one here. And that's why we recommend to not do copy paste. Okay. Okay, and here we're going to add using TechAtAgoda dot service services. Still not happy. Expected TechAtAgoda since approach. Oh, that's the older issue in the book, the semicolon. On which one? I didn't say this. Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Require formal parameter title. Oh, okay. Then we're good. Let's say Mr. I hope you went further than me. No? Okay. No error. That's one place. Anyone is getting is being able to build some unit test, like whether it's NUnit or XUnit? No? Anyway, I'm going to push that to the repository so you can grab it and then play around later. Okay, let's make sure at least that we can run the test. So this is like we're going to need to run the actual test, right? So what I'm doing here, I'm playing with the variants of the methods by passing node, by passing empty string, and passing an actual value. Just trying to optimize for branch coverage and code coverage. Do you know what does it mean, code coverage and branch coverage? What is the notion or the difference behind? Can somebody?
So if you have a lot of details, branch coverage is like, are you hitting this details?
Kind
Code
of, yeah.
coverage is just, did you hit this particular line?
It goes a little bit deeper than just this line. When you have an if-else, you have two conditions, and that's the branch. Like it's branching to a different way. So in a way, it goes to a specific line for each if or else, but it's measuring like the variety. You could have if A or B, and it's going to go to only 2 lines, but actually there's more compositions, right? There's A true, B true, and basically the four variants. That's what the branch coverage is. It's check all the possible way to go through your code. And that's why here, because we have an if-else with string not null, I'm testing for null for empty string, because in a is string null or empty, right? There is multiple conditions behind. If I was testing only for null, I would miss some of those. Okay, another copy paste. Let's not forget the namespace this time. So I'm going to go to stage 2 test. I'm actually just going to copy that. So we are in the tests. I think I have it here. Okay, and we probably want to import the namespace for using TechAtAgoda. Service it, right? Okay, 0 error. And now we can, let's not work, test our X units. That should be right. Okay, so 3 tests, 3 passed, 0 failed, and 0 skipped. Now we have that in place, but we haven't told yet a payer to build that. So now we're gonna have to modify our YAML code to or script to run those tests. Let's go back to the sample on here. Where is my test here? Let's go. I should have an example there. No, we have the outcome. So let's copy the YAML on stage 2. But what changes is we add another configuration to run the test. So you will see is it stage 2? Where is our test? So build. So we change here to use the solution. Okay, I guess it's going to be on stage 3. Probably missed it in the push earlier. Test script. So that's going to be a little bit tricky here, because we're going to have to add a couple of tools to be able to run the tests and extract the code coverage. Like right now, we have only added the test. We're going to add open cover, and actually, anyone that is on Windows will be able to reproduce those steps on the machine. Unfortunately, I'm not sure for your version if it's going to work or not. Open cover, it should be mostly compatible. And on Mac, I haven't tried, so I cannot guarantee. So once we get to run the test, like apparently I didn't push the change, and we could add a line .NET test into our after build stage in the YAML to see it run. But since we are a little bit short on time, we're going to go directly to open cover and add the right coverage commands. So a few words about open cover. It's quite, I don't want to say old, but it has been here for quite a while, like for a long time. and .NET Core didn't exist at that time. Now, lucky for us, what we are going to use and the way we are going to build, there is an option to select a verbose old style of the output of OpenCover data that will be able to be processed later on and used for our purpose on the code and to be passing the reports to other tools. So a few words about the commands we're going to use for OpenCover. First, register. The registers allows you to set on your machine like which environment, which kind of user profile or administrator profile you want to use. This is because OpenCover inspects your code, and sometimes the operating system will not allow you to do that. And it will generate an error saying that basically it didn't find any code to test or to inspect. Old style is what I was mentioning, so it was done before Silverlight, and lucky for us, it also works for .NET Core, so we are going to use that feature. Target. Target is basically what I just did earlier. It's going to do a .NET test to execute the test, and as it's running this command, it's going to do some inspection and collecting information about the code that is being run and executed. The target args are a few parameters that we want to give to a .NET command, test, and eventually you can add a no build if you want to simplify. Like if you noticed when I was running in the command, it did a build before running the test. You can skip that by adding in the argument no build. And I think there's some example in the next few slides. Filter, what you want to exclude to be tested. There are two different types of developers' mindset towards the Boost test. The one that want to include the unit test to be also analyzed for test coverage, and the one that want to exclude it. In that case, we are going to include our test code to be also checked for code coverage, so that basically we don't need to add too many additional arguments to filter in or out, but we can precise some options to exclude the code we don't want. In the example I'm going to show, we are going to remove some classes generated by .NET when we created that application, like the startup.cs, the program.cs, because we are not going to test it. It's a template thing. We will just trust that this code is fine. It's not something that we have created. And also, we can exclude things like node modules when we have a JavaScript test. Like, we don't want to be going through all the node modules and see that it's actually not covered, because then your test coverage will be very low. So we can exclude also those things like when we do code coverage. And finally, the output, like where you want to throw the result of the analysis. Otherwise, we're going to be like we can pass it basically to the code cove and SonarView to throw on the dashboards. So this is how we can add OpenCover. So hopefully, for the few that are already on board, you maybe want me to push to Git so you can pick up what we have so far. Let's do that quickly. 5,000. Okay. So first, let's go to the other thing here. Now that we moved node modules to a subfolder, we need to change our git ignore. So you might want to do something like ** nodes modules, then **, and the other one that should be enough, I think. Okay, now we're back to only the file that we moved and that we added for the test. That looks fine. We want the dists folder. Root dists. I guess probably some other record of it earlier in the file. Just want to go quickly so we can start to push the code. Okay, and we're gonna add coverage first. Yeah. Okay, so now you should be able to pick this one up before we continue to add. So we are in the test projects. .NET add package or package reference open cover. So we can download it, and I think no error there. Go to .NET restore just to update the things. Now what you want to do is, depending on your machine, you want to find where is OpenCover file. So you're gonna do something like this. .NET, you get local, you want to know where is the global package. So it's here, and you can use that path to run OpenCover from command line. On the app layer, we will see that there is environment variable that gives you when you get path. So we place that here.
Can I see again the .NET package?
Sure. .NET add package OpenCover. So we can see here the different options that I was talking about. Let's oh, maybe it's a bit too big, right? So we're in the console, we register user, we use old style, the target is .NET.exe, the target is test, we're gonna give it the test project, and I'm gonna give him my namespace, so I need to change that to TechAtAgoda, and adding the test namespace. I'm going to paste that on the TechAtAgoda code share. Okay, you can use that. I'm going to paste that in here as well. And maybe there are some spaces, so we might want to duplicates in Git folder. Okay. And we say we want to change the namespace. So that's your namespace here. TechAtAgoda and test. Cover. Oh, okay. Actually, on the Git bash. So if you are in a PowerShell or on the command line, it will have the right syntax. Otherwise, you need to use backslash. Then cover 46 tools, OpenCover console. And then you can paste the rest here. And we need the output. And we call it results, I think. No, coverage.xml. And test. Output folder does not exist.
Got to output twice then.
Sorry?
Got to output twice.
Oh, there is like this weird thing. Yeah, I probably copied. Yeah, copied too much.
Copy paste coding, Cedric, it's not good.
Sorry?
Copy paste coding is not good.
Exactly.
And that's why like well, in like Microsoft and Windows, you just click
And now I think about it, it might fail in GitHub, in Git bash. We might need a command window or a PowerShell. Maybe OpenCover might have issues with the Git bash. Let's see. Yeah. So let's go back to what I pasted here. Use well, I would think, if I recall that this is the issue. Check it out. Tests. We will see user. Copy that. That would have been better when I used this one at the beginning. So the few things that could fail here is either you forgot the register user that will not allow, and it's still not willing to do that. The other thing is your filter, and that's the case here. My filter are not good. The namespace is TechAtAgoda. These are a few things like permission issues, and again, here permission issues, register user is missed, or the filters are not good. Now, my namespace is TechAtAgoda. If we go back there, we have namespace test, and there's namespace TechAtAgoda in the other one. TechAtAgoda, yeah. So let's revisit that. We have old style, the target arc, the filter, plus TechAtAgoda. That should be correct. So, is anyone able to actually get something that is not that is actually working? No. Okay. So let's do live debug. Now,
Have you got it working in that bar?
sorry?
Have you got it working in that bar?
In AppAir it should work,
Maybe it might be consumed for that step. We're running
but I saw that I missed to push my AppAir file for stage 2. So if my stage 3 is not up to date, it might also fail. But let's give it a try. Like here, I would expect it to work because the filter is the correct namespace. We have a star for any subspace behind that. Yes.
So I copied the argument from stage 3 acquire YAML for running
Yeah.
the console, and it works.
Okay. I would expect it to work. It's just can't find which part of the. But let's try to move on. And but the thing is, yeah, it's not
Maybe you didn't change the folder to upper level.
two.
To upper level.
One.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's give it a try.
Okay, so
But yeah, well, we can give us a folder and give it here. Tests. Let's see if we can get that at least covered by a pair that will allow us to move to Sonocchio. No, it's not gonna pass here. So let's do a change for a pair. In here. Okay. So we're gonna have to edit our Avair file, but let's show this one. Like since you copied from Avair, it should be working, right? Let's go there. I'm just wondering, like, the comments on the stream live that people are following and getting like, hey man, get your stuff together. So we want to go to source, to yarn install. We want to get back up, we want to do restore, and we will not want to do back up because in that case I don't have a stage folder. We're going to be at the root. here, and user profile. So on AppVeyor, the NuGet packages are under the user profiles. The rest should be working fine. Here we're using Choco install, so it already have a Kotkov bits. So we don't want to do that because we haven't created the profile yet. We're just going to generate the coverage file. And here I think mine is named TechAtAgoda. Do we have a test running here? Test script. Yes. Yes. Okay, well, let's give it a try, right? Let's go to here. Where is my... Oh, that one failed. That was previous run, I guess. So add coverage. No, it is the right one. No, test coverage. So given the time, we should be able at least to get Kotkov online. Hopefully, maybe SonarQube. I'm not entirely sure we'll be able to push to Azure, but I will go through the slide to give the step that will be required. And if you use the OpenCI repository, it's the stage 5 AppVeyor, and the root AppVeyor file actually succeeds, so it can be used as a base to check it also. And do you also have it working on AppVeyor? No? See, so the solution, it's able to build the solution, so far so good. It's going to try to run the tests. But, okay, I missed the folder name, stage 3 test, because we are not in stage 3, so I'm going to have to fix that one. And that's why we don't like to have all the scripts into AppVeyor, but into a nice script file.
That's a filter, correct? Should that be?
Oh, correct, that's right. TechAtAgoda. And just to check, I'm wondering if maybe the dots might have been also something. So let's put both. Like if you have extra filter that don't match, it doesn't hurt. If you have the one that actually match, because my namespace is really TechAtAgoda, right? TechAtAgoda is not typo. Okay. And also that's the tricky part here, that we need to wait for the next build to come. You can imagine with the bigger solutions, once you have that layer file that is working fine, then you just need to wait for the build to happen. However, in as you test it on live, there is no local version. You can make sure it works. As it builds, let's check what's going on here. Hey, we got some feedback from AppVeyor, right? And we didn't add any authentication to the file. Like this is what I was mentioning earlier. It is related to each other. They trust public repository through AppVeyor to push your success build, fail build. Now we have built on the PR that is pending, and it should update as we get this one up. Let's cross finger. Should scroll down by itself. That's really pleasant. can see up and cover might use some resources. It's slow to do stuff, but it might be for no, still not. So that's weird. Because if we don't have this code coverage, that's not going to be fun on code. It's going to show 0. Sorry?
What?
Oh, it's not gonna have coverage file. Yes. Yeah. Well, then let's try Soda Cloud, because like I don't want to be spending time to debug. It might be something obvious, and it's just not showing up here. One thing I'm thinking of, but I don't want to be doing too many retries, is we might need to be on the test folder and not use a subpath for the DLL. We can see, well, we wouldn't see the previous builds. So yes, well, I'm sorry for that case. If you have it working on Abear, please share or raise your hand so that we can apply it and share with everyone. But like here, that's the part I would eventually try, is to remove this test, and before to do a CD to the test folder. That's a shame. It would have been much more fun to see it in Abear. Again, if you go to this repository, you can see the outcome. Like thankfully, I prepared it for that purpose. We should be able to get the results. So here, because I have only that test case of the name service that returns a static string, like I didn't add coverage for everything. We are at 11%. If you click to that link, it will go and show you. This is how it should look if we get it to work, showing the line coverage through time. Some graphs like a sunburst about like what are the files that are covered, what are the ones that are not covered. Every time you have a build, it will show on that area the actual steps, and you can browse the code and see each of them. So because we have added the test folder in that case, we are covered at 100% and all the branches, right? Line hit, line partial, and line miss, it shows the whole coverage. But the source code is very badly covered, right? And again, it's not the goal of this exercise to try to cover everything. It's to see how it looks and how we can use it to eventually fix our code, to reduce the technical debt. We can drill down. It will show you really what are the lines that are not covered, what are the branches that are not covered. So here everything is green because we tested in our test case like for no, for empty string. So we get like full coverage here. Everything is fine. We get 100%. So to be able to work with Code, we need another YAML file. So I'm going to go quickly through it so that you get an idea of what it means. I will use this repository as a base so that we don't waste space time. Sorry. It's this code.yaml. That is the description of what you want code to be reporting on. So it's much smaller. Like there's almost nothing there. You want to notify whether it's required to pass or not. What it would look like is in the repository, when it fails to pass, we are in the repository, it would fail the build. Like you would have a red cross. Like here we have a build successful, so we have green cross, but it would be, you probably want to update, it would be marked as failed. It wouldn't have this green mark if you don't have the right code coverage. The right code coverage is triggered by this branch here. So the industry, maybe not industry standard, but what is commonly followed is to have at least 60 to 70% of your code that is covered, right? And depending on how strict you want to be, you can increase it to higher or lower. But like on general practice, I have often seen around like 60, 70. So what this means here, which I'm gonna zoom so that you can see better, that at 70%, that's my minimum coverage. Everything below will be red. And that's why our badge in the README is red, because we have only 11%. The 90% is what is the upper boundary, that is like the zone up to which you want to say, okay, that's more than 90%, That's good. Like we don't need to try hard to get more than 90%. So how it looks is basically below 70 for that case, you're going to get red code analysis. 70 to 90 is going to be orange, so that you know where you are on the sunburst. And more than 90 is going to be green. And it's reflected both in boost area or in the main dashboards at the point page. Does it go there? Yeah. So that's also why those colors are here. So if you play with those numbers, depending on your practice, maybe if you have no code coverage on a large source, you're going to set it to maybe 20%, 40%, and gradually increase as you are filling the coverage, so that you know where you're going. Also, the login here is linked to GitHub, so you don't need to create an account, you can attach it automatically. So that's for code code and code coverage. Now let's try to have a static code analysis. Now since it doesn't create any error in the build, I'm not going to reverse anything about code code. Let's just let it run. And let's go back to our presentation to see here where we were, just to catch up on this. Let's switch your screen. Okay, so haha, that sucks because I already solved it. We should have go through the script. So you remember we put old style in the command. We also need to set full debug mode to generate extra verbose information to get it to work. So now I'm surprised that you were able to get it. Can you look at your CS proj if you have debug type full? So if you were able to get as far as I went and it failed, you can add that to the code. Next time, no, stick to the slides. So how it should look actually here is this one. We'll do that in a moment. Okay. Well, do you want to go through that? Do you want to get a verification? It's actually the thing. So at least when you leave here, you have a full state of what it should do. Okay, doesn't seem so. So let's move on. As I was saying earlier, we have by default the .NET test is going to be built. You could eventually skip that if you have built it earlier, but like by adding the no build in the target app. Now if we want to push to code single sign-on, you can use your same account. When it starts, you're going to have a key here that is displayed, and we are going to use that in the app layer file to push the report. Since we don't have the reports, I'm going to go through the slide to explain so that we can move to SonarQube. What we do with that is, this is a key that is specific to your repository. Anyone with that key, and you can try this one, I just like put some random stuff. Anyone with that key can push information to your code. And if it is something that you want to track carefully and somebody messes with it, it's not fun. So what we can do with that key is in app layer create an encrypted version that will be able to be read only by app layer. So the key will be some base64 something, and anyone that sees it just can't reuse. So here, to be able to get some beam back also from code to your code, you would need to install the code application in GitHub. It's very straightforward. When you click that link from code, you go to configure. It will go to that page. You can select the repository. You can add one or all your repositories. Click installed, and it will bring the report. The way we can run it, thankfully, it's super easy. You just need Chocolate. Like, if you don't know, it's just like a package manager for Windows, similar to NuGet or some others. It's just to easily install some application, and app layer support Chocolate. So you put Choco install code. It will put some plugin extensions, some SDK, and then you can call code with your coverage file from the previous step, and it will run the analysis. It will push automatically the change to code, and you will see the report as I was showing earlier. One trick here is right now we are working on a branch. The way code works is that it needs a reference to show the progress of your code coverage. So you will need eventually to, once you have pushed and merged your PR to master, you might want to come here, go to the settings and delete the repository and rebuild once time for master branch. So it initializes on a good state. You don't have to do that, but if you want to have like nice clean reference, you would do that. And then we get there. So let's try SonarCloud. Hopefully we get more successful. We have about 15 minutes left, I think. So let's try to do that. You can go to sonarcloud.io to sign in. And again, this is well integrated with GitHub. So just authorize the application if you want to trust it. And so far I didn't have a problem. You can add your project, so you would click on this Analyze a Project option. You would enter whichever name you want to have and create a token. Again, we'll see the token theme and encryption in AppLayer after going through those slides, so at least you get the information. It will generate a token that you would copy. It will be displayed here, and then secure it in AppLayer and put it into your build file. Yes, the thing is, we need, same as CodeCove, we need a tool to run code coverage, the scan on AppLayer. It's a little bit more tricky than installing your Chocolate package. The installation is the same, but running it is a bit different because we need a pre-step and a post-step around the build. We need to register the MS build with the scanner from SonarCube. It will add some configuration change on your build parameters. It will run the build and then analyze the code. So this is what we can add to the AppLayer to do the installation of Chocolate. And then we go to the encryption. So this is the direct link, but in the application in AppLayer, if you need to encrypt something, you would go to your profile here and encrypt data. When you go there, you put your key that you need to encrypt, and it will generate the key. Let's go to sonarcloud.io. Let's log in. Let's quickly do what we just saw in the slides. This time we went through the slides first. You see, I already have a project with that key. Here, if we go to the layer, right? This is how it looks when you encrypt your key. Right? You put the value, you click encrypt. It provides you directly the value, and also how you would paste it inside the YAML file. We will see the example in the stage 5 part. Or the other one. This is master. Here we should have environment, and then here we go. So here we have the Sonar key. After I encrypt it, it gives some text here, and this is fine to put in your source to come into GitHub. It cannot be used by anyone. Only AppLayer is able to decrypt it to recover the actual key. We have another one, which is the SonarCube GitHub key to post back to GitHub. We will see in the slides in a moment. What it does is basically put some feedback about what code needs to be fixed. So this is how you create in the environments section of AppLayer config file the name and the value secure. And later on, when you use it, you're just going to refer to it by, I'll use the script. So we're going to use, I think it's in after test.ps1. No, let's go. Yeah. So I was mentioning, we need to do something with the scanner to have a preparation step before we build. So once we have installed the Chocolate package here, you would pick up the tool, you would trigger the tool, and it's going to pass yet again, a series of parameters. Let's go through it in that page so that we get the actual values referring to the repository. And I have an if-else, like if you see here, if it is a pull request or if it is a repo branch that is actually named master. I mentioned that earlier in the in this discussion. We want to have different outcome of static code analysis depending on a branch build or a feature build or a pull request. On the pull request, I just want to analyze the code and give me feedback. On the master branch, it will do a full analysis and push to SonarQube. So because it's a step before we run the compilation, the command to the MS build is begin. I give a key. This key will be reflected basically in here to be present there. A version. So this V is for version, and you can use AppLayer environment variable to know which version it is. So every time that you get the right value. Now organization. This is your organization name when you created the SonarCloud account. If we go back to the presentation here, this is the one that was created here. Choose an organization for your project. This is there. The host, because it's a public cloud version, you use SonarCloud.io. That will work if you host your own SonarQube server. And as far as I know, you can host a developer version like for free. There's no license for the base version, and you would put the URL and eventually the port of your version. Now we had a coverage.xml, which unfortunately we were not able to generate. So that's how you tell SonarCloud you're going to use this one. And here, this is the key that we generated. Like this is how we get the contract between AppLayer and your project in SonarCloud by providing this Sonar key. You can add some exclusion. In the same way that we do exclusions in the test coverage, you can decide to exclude code to be analyzed. Like for example, you have generated from .NET Core the project. It has a startup.cs, it has the program.cs. Well, you don't want to analyze it, but this is going to be a new project and it's not something you have created. So you could put it into the Sonar exclusion here. I use a variable here because it's very long for my case. If we go up and refer to the environment in AppLayer file, environment here, Sonar exclusion. So I'm removing the coverage files. Here this is a folder because we have eventually the TypeScript coverage folder that is created, the XML file. I want to remove TypeScript coverage from there, some jest, as I was mentioning, program.cs, startup from CS. I want to include node module. If we were to test JavaScript, so you can also analyze JavaScript or TypeScript, any language, like recently they support Go language to provide rules for Go. This is where you can put all your exclusions. So it's nice to put into one place, you can refer to it easily and modify it. Where are we here? Okay, exclusions. So now we have a difference in our if, right? If I'm doing a pull request, I want to use a preview mode. And for your information, when you run this preview mode, it's going to have a warning that it's deprecated. It has been deprecated for a long time. They will have a new version or a new way to use this preview mode, or it's also called issue mode for pull request. But don't worry, like it's here still for a while. You can tell what is your pull request. So as soon as you say you want to do an issue mode or preview mode that is not going to store data in SonarCloud server, you need to provide the pull request. It's just the number of your pull requests. You need to give a repository to which it is linked, and then what I was mentioning here, the other key that you need, and this is something that you create in GitHub, is the key that allows SonarQube or SonarCloud to post back to your pull request and say, hey, this is the code that doesn't work well. And let's have a look at how it actually, here this is TechAtAgoda. Let's go to the pull request that I had. And that's the deployment. SonarCube commands. Here, this is how it looks when SonarCloud is going to tell you your code is not right. This one's no detail. Yeah. Now that was a good code. SonarCube here. So for that case, well, it was positive. If you had some errors, it would tell here the same way with a red cross that hey, you need to modify this this file, and it would have the same output as what is displayed here. So let's go and check our code. So this is a dashboard that will be created once you push the static code analysis to SonarCloud. This is for a master or a branch build, not for a pull request, right? As I was mentioning, the pull request will be displayed here. Your branch report will be displayed here. The statistics here show different things. Let's go to the slides because we have a lot of detail there. Configuration. So that's what we would have added to the app layer file. We went through that. Okay, here a dashboard that shows the result. I think I mentioned about the quality gate, and let's go to the quality gate thing. Take a branch. Okay, so SonarCube have a few methods to categorize what you do with the code and how you want to give warnings, alerts, blockers, and information. So the first thing it has is quality profile. It's basically to tell what kind of analysis, what kind of rules you want to apply. So if you want to be very loose, you're going to say, okay, if you miss a semicolon, if you have an obvious too many characters on one line, like something very simple, you can enable or disable the rules. If you are adding code analysis on a big project, you're going to have tons of errors, and you don't want to be fixing all of them at the same time, right? So you can play it around and enable, disable the rules. I have a few screens that shows how to do that. Then we have a quality gate, is that when you break a rule, to which limits you want to accept it to show a red flag or to show a green or orange flag. Like same way that we have for code coverage, our 70%, 90%, here you can say, okay, if I fail less than 40% of code coverage, it's going to fail the PR, and I will not allow to merge my code to the main branch, master branch, develop branch, whichever one you're tracking. Or if I have more than 2 days technical debt or whichever from the screen that we had here, like on any of those metrics. We will go through the details of those metrics. Actually, let's do that now. We have pure bugs that are like basically vulnerabilities, something that is not just bad code practice, but something that will that could trigger like security concern, like a SQL injection if you have clear text queries in your code, this kind of thing. The dashboard is separated here between the yellow and the white part. So I don't have a pointer, but basically here that white area is the current state of your code. In the yellow part or orange part, it's what has been the last commit, the last change made to your branch. And this way you can distinct between like, okay, my last commit introduced more technical debt. And what is the percent of this technical debt? Although my repo is clean, this new part of code was not very clean. And it doesn't affect the main overall code, but you don't want to be like little by little introducing more dirty code. So that's why it's useful to have this view. Now on the code smell, it's like general bad practice, like code duplications, like how many times you copy paste, like we were talking about that earlier, and another bad programming practice. Coverage, so here you will notice it's a bit different than what we had on the other page. It was showing 11%, right, on the unit test coverage. Here at the top you can see that I had TypeScript also covered. Actually, uncovered. So the overall amount of code is larger, so the percentage reflects to the overall code. We have much more lines of code, and the C# is more predominant to be covered. And the duplication here, like that's specific to duplication, contributing to the technical debt, is if you want to have a snapshot of it and drill down where you have bad practice. So this is my live dashboard. Let's see some example of code smell. I go there. It's gonna tell me, okay, let's keep the CSS. Hopefully I get some C#. Oh, well, my code smell is only on CSS, so let's just. So it takes all the code, it share with you, and here it's telling me like what is wrong. It's the type is blocker, I guess. Like it's a category for a blocker or a high, low end type of bugs. It's code smell. Okay, here we go. So it's even more than a blocker. It's a critical one. So it expects the selector blah blah to come before the other one. Like it's just like the order of the sequence. So it knows that what are the good practice in CSS. Again, here is because I included the client-side project. If you want to clean up a repository that exists, right, and you have server-side code, client-side code, and you want to start cleaning one or the other, you can use the exclusion I was mentioning earlier to pick up where you want to start. That will make it easier to identify. If you are starting a project from scratch, I would recommend to put everything into coverage and analysis so that you keep always a nice project. I was supposed to leave at 4.
We can go over a little bit, but not too much.
Okay, so then I will not touch Azure deployment. Like basically in Azure deployment, it's another command that you would trigger from that layer using the Azure SDK. It has a built-in feature, but it would be included. So since we've been for the last like 20 minutes very quickly without actually trying to do it ourselves so that we don't waste time, is there anything in particular in either Code or Sonacode that you would like to cover? Do you have any questions related to that?
It's not easy.
It is?
It's not easy. There are so many.
So it's not that it's not easy. It's just it's sensitive to the settings. So and that's what actually I prepared the slides to reflect what should be there, so that we can see the outcome. I would have preferred that the command would have been easier. Like if I had been through the slide first to see we need to enable full debug option, and then it would have been a little bit smoother. But yes, like there's a lot of small tricks and practice. The good thing is in the OpenCI repository, you get all the right full version of it in the app layer that is at the root. It's also broken down into scripts so that the app layer YAML file is very clean and small, and each script for the step that you want, the before test, after test, before build, and so on, is available. Good thing, it also can deploy to Azure. So if you have an Azure account, let's use the slides actually to quickly. It's not the Azure thing, but like you get the sample available. You can download since it's open source. That was the purpose of the workshop, to be all open source. So hopefully you can use it and try to tweak it. I would be curious to see how it works on Mac. I don't know. I have a Linux machine and a Windows machine. I don't have Mac. And for in your case, that's a good surprise. Like I wouldn't expect that to happen. Anything else? No? Okay. Well, I guess that's about it. I'm a little bit disappointed that we couldn't get that last small thing on the code working, but having at least the main source available should help you to move forwards, to explore deeper, to expand to your project, maybe to support other languages. Like here, I have samples for TypeScript and C#. Again, the latest version of Sonar includes Go. So if you're coding in Go, it's supported. It has PHP and all the languages.
Is anyone here using Golang? Just you, man. It's been getting very popular lately. Yeah.
Well, it's getting popular since the cloud is adding support for it, right?
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's all folks, as I say.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there, guys. Feel free to stick around and mingle if you like, guys. There's still some snacks and coffee out
Should we
there.
stop this week?
Yeah, we'll stop in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry, Cedric, I've got it under control. So thanks, guys.
Did anyone try to build the even close to the whole? Okay. So if you get you contribute to
Yeah, well, the support is
He's like, it's not that much.
If I just go to my home, nobody's up. Yeah, it's like, it's also, okay. It's like a, use like Visual Studio Code to show stuff on the colors. Yeah. One of the, it's not very increasing basis. So if you wanted to share the Linux one, then this kind of service.
Did you do a restore?
Yeah.
Okay, then if you do a restore after you open Visual Studio Code, the cache is Visual Studio Code doesn't work.
Well, I've restored and restarted 3 times.